All right, folks, I am live. Let me make sure I'm live on Instagram. All right. I'm live on the YouTubes and I'm live on the gram. Okay. First thing I want to say is I want to make a correction clarification from last time I was on last week. I said that the humans were invented by the high evolutionary. They're actually invented by the Kree. It's really funny, too, because the Kree were trying to make super soldiers, but that's another conversation. So I just got that messed up in my head. But the humans were invented by the Kree, not the high evolutionary. I'm mixing my mutant metaphors there. Say that 3 times fast. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is scandal and survival. Scandal and survival. Now, rarely have I seen a week in comicdom, in fandom. I know my hat keeps going in and out of the shot. Rarely have I seen a week in comic fandom that was like this week. So much stuff happened this week, I still can't believe it. I'm still reeling, actually, from everything that happened this week because there's so much that happened this week. It's just, I don't even have words for it. So I can't cover all the stories. Some of the stories are still developing. So when there's more information out there on them, I will probably cover them. But today, because normally I just talk about one thing, but today I'm actually going to cover 4 different things because I had to make this like a weekly roundup style this time because there's too much that happened this week for me not to talk about it. Okay? So I will put the timestamps below the video. So for those that are watching on replay, you can cut to whatever part you want to see. Okay? So we're going to talk about 4 different things today. First thing I'm going to talk about is one of the biggest news stories of the week, and that is the death of Gene Hackman. Now, that caught everybody by surprise because Gene Hackman was and is a beloved actor, and he's been in the game for a very long time, and he's done many memorable roles. So, of course, us comic book fans know him as Lex Luthor from the Chris Reeve Superman films, but Gene Hackman did so much more in his career and did so much more in his life. And all the accolades and the condolences have been pouring in all week since the news of his sudden passing. But the problem is, the challenge is that the way he died and the circumstances around his death seemed kind of fishy, seemed kind of like something ain't right in Smallville. Okay, so let me pull that up. I'm going to look at this article. Okay. Now, if you don't know, it wasn't just Gene Hackman that died. His wife died as well. And one of their dogs. They had 3 German Shepherds. One of those dogs died. The other 2 were fine. And the circumstances just seem just really, really fishy. So let's look at the article. Gene Hackman's wife, Betsy Arakawa's body had signs of mummification when discovered. Here's what that means. Gene Hackman was found dead in his New Mexico home along with his wife and one of their pet dogs. Okay. Wednesday, February 26, Gene Hackman was found dead at age 95. Now, some outlets were saying he was 97, so not everybody got that right. So most are reporting 95, some are saying 97, in his New Mexico home along with his wife, 64, who was a classical pianist, and one of their pet dogs. So all 3 of them was found dead. According to an affidavit from an officer requesting a search warrant and obtained by People, the body of the 2-time Oscar winner's wife, Betsy Arakawa, was in the process of decomposing when they were found. Arakawa showed obvious signs of death, body decomposition, bloating in her face, and mummification in both hands and feet. Okay. The deputy advised the male descendant also showed obvious signs of death, similar and consistent with the female decedent. Mummification occurs when when dead tissue turns into a hard shrunken mass, often from dehydration. When an individual dies, the body starts naturally decomposing almost immediately. Natural mummification can occur in dry, hot environments. In Arakawa's case, only her hands and feet were dried out. So right off the bat, people were wondering what would be the circumstances of such a thing happening. So we're going to read the article some more, but you will discover that there were pills around her, I believe. And they said that Hackman looked like he just kind of died where he fell. How does that extend to the dog? So let's finish the article, and then we'll take a deeper dive into that. Okay, so artificial mummification can be achieved through a number of processes like embalming, wrapping the body, etc. Ancient Egyptians used mummification to preserve the body after a person died. The complete mummification of the human body is a time-consuming process and typically takes several weeks to 6 to 12 months, half a year to a year. Time can vary depending on conditions, the most important reportedly being dry air, good ventilation, solar radiation, and high temperature. Okay. According to the search warrant affidavit, the deaths of Hackman and Arakawa are suspicious enough in nature to require a thorough search and investigation. The Santa Fe County Sheriff Office told TMZ that the French Connection star and his wife's bodies had been in their home for at least a day before deputies found them deceased. Authorities also shared that there was an active and ongoing investigation. So at the latest, they died on Tuesday and they were found on Wednesday. So then the question becomes, what happened? What could have happened? So the initial report said it looked like it was from a carbon monoxide leak. It looks like it could have been from carbon monoxide in there and they got poisoned and died. By the way, I have a very affordable carbon monoxide detector I want to recommend to you. If you don't have carbon monoxide detectors in your home, you need them. I have one that I keep right on the head of my bed, and it flashes to let me know that the battery is still active. So I'm going to put that link below so you can check it out. Because if you don't have a carbon monoxide detector, you need one in your home. Now, depending on what state you live in, it might be mandated by law that you have them, but you need them. It's nothing to play with. Okay? So the first thought was carbon monoxide, that they had some carbon monoxide poisoning and they dropped dead, and then that was it. But when the fire department came in, they said they couldn't detect any traces of carbon monoxide poisoning. They also said they didn't find any obvious signs of like a struggle, like somebody's face was beat in, something like that. And they also said there was no forced entry, that the door was unlocked. Now, when you add all those elements together, then some ain't right in Smallville. Okay, so normally, the motives, if they were taken out, normally those motives are financial. Normally somebody is in line to get some money. Because why else would somebody do that? Especially to a man that was 95 years of age. Okay? So if there was a financial motive involved, that's normally the most common reason people commit murder. But both of them were dead. Okay? And she was 30 years or so his junior. And so some people said it was some type of murder-suicide or maybe a suicide pact. But remember that people don't do anything unless they have something to gain from it. Now, I don't know anything about their faith or their religious beliefs. I don't know anything about that. So I'm just saying some people posited that might be a possible situation, that they had some type of murder-suicide pact. But again, would you live 95 years and then want to go out that way? I mean, so I don't know. Like I said, there's some information missing. There's some information missing. There's some stuff we don't know, and we might not ever know. We might not ever know the full thing. But the truth of the matter is that there's some more details that are going to have to be filled in over Gene Hackman's death. Maybe, some have suggested that he was on the schlep list. When I say the schlep list, you know what I'm talking about, because I'm not going to call that name on my YouTube channel. But some suggested he might have been on the schlep list. And because the schlep list was supposedly getting ready to get leaked, he decided to end it so that the memory of him would just, be a positive, pleasant one, and people would just remember him for his wonderful acting roles and all that. Some people suggested that. I don't know. And how does that include one of the dogs? Because if it's not a carbon monoxide leak, if it was an injection of some kind, did they inject the dog or did they take pills? Like if they took cyanide, but cyanide is a hard way to die. Lord have mercy. If they took something, sleeping pills or whatever, did they put it in a dog food? Like, why would they kill the dog? Normally when people kill an animal, it's to spite the partner. So like some people get so mad at their partners until they end up killing a pet, despite the partner. So like I said, there's just any number of things that could have happened. And they said the forensic report, the autopsies and the examinations, everything is going to take some weeks to go through. So we don't really know what happened. And we're not going to know. It's one of those things where I try to tell people, you ain't never going to know. You're going to know what they release or whatever the official story is, but there's too many different factors in play. We're not going to know. All we know for sure is that a beloved actor is dead, and his wife and one of their pets. And we know that actor has entertained us for decades with many, many roles that we loved. And I saw a couple of tweets from Valerie Perrine on Twitter. She was Miss Tessmacher in the Chris Reeve movies. And she tweeted about, let me see if I can find that actually. She tweeted about missing Gene and how wonderful he was to her. So let me see if I can actually find those. I'm pretty sure I saved them. So let me pull one up if I did. Yeah, there we go. I saw more than one, but I did save this one. So let me put that on the screen so we can read that. There it is. You should see it now. Valerie Perrine said, the great Gene Hackman has passed away. Heartbreak. He was a genius and one of the greatest to grace the silver screen. I had the honor of working with him on Superman. His performances are legendary. His talent will be missed. Goodbye, my sweet Lex, till we meet again. Valerie. # Gene Hackman. So, I mean, those type of comments and those type of compliments and those type of supportive tweets and other social media posts on Instagram and that type of feedback is what has been feeding in about Hackman all week since Wednesday. Because again, he was a beloved actor and he did many, 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 many good roles. So my position is that we are never going to actually know the full story because there's too many strange things in this mix that don't make any sense. And whenever you look at something and the math ain't mathing, all that means is that there's missing information. That's all that ever means. Because there's an explanation for everything. There's nothing that happens under the sun that there's not an explanation for. You might not like the explanation. You might not accept the explanation. And the explanation may be beyond what your mind can conceive. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Okay? There's an explanation for everything done under the sun. So there's an explanation for this. We are probably never going to know what it is because none of it, the information we have, none of that makes any sense. The motives that I talked about in the possible scenarios, they don't all fit comfortably into one explanation. And another thing that I can guarantee you for sure that we'll never know what they were thinking in the last moments of life. If this was a murder situation where somebody took them out, when they woke up that day, they didn't think this is my last day on earth. If this was a murder-suicide, people do stuff like that because there's something they hope to gain from it. If this was just a random accident. But whenever they got ready to breathe their last, we ain't gonna never know what they were thinking. What if you took some pills and you changed your mind and you can't puke them up fast enough and they ended up taking you out? You took them because you wanted to die and then you changed your mind, but you couldn't puke them back up. How do you know? We ain't gonna never know. Okay? So my comment on it is I echo everybody else's sentiment. I love Gene Hackman as an actor. I never saw him in anything where I thought he was bad. He convinced me he was that character in all of his roles. He was incredible. I think he was one of the best to ever do it. And I hope with all my heart that legacy stays intact. Because I'm not one of those people that believe in putting people on blast after they dead. Because I think that's cowardly because they're not there to defend themselves. Okay? My father always taught me it's not fair to talk about something that involves other people and they're not there to present their side. So I'm not one of those people that believe in putting people on blast after they did. Whatever they did in life, their journey in this life, their journey in their mortal form is over, and what's done is done. So I'm not going to be digging up old bones or whatever. So, like I said, my sincerest hope in this Gene Hackman situation, I probably should have put that on the screen. Okay, I'm going to put the stuff I'm covering on the screen from now on so you can see what section of the video I'm on. So I'm actually finishing my Gene Hackman segment. So I'll do better with the next one. So my hope in all of this is that his strong legacy of acting, of inspiring other actors, of entertaining audiences for multiple decades, his strong body of work, that is indisputable. That is not debatable. Gitami says, yes, so sad about Gene Hackman. That's right. James is here. That's right. I agree. It's just really, really sad. So my hope in the situation is that his strong body of work and his strong legacy of being one of the best at the top of his profession and an inspiration to others and entertaining audiences for years, I want that to be his legacy, and I'm good with that. Yeah, I'm just giving you my perspective. It's my channel. You do what you want to do on your channel. On my channel, what I'm saying is I'm hoping that that's the legacy and that stays intact, because I have no desire to hear about his past sins and failures. I'm not saying he doesn't have any, because everybody has some. Everybody has past sins. Everybody has moral and ethical failures. And anybody that tells you that they don't, that's one of them, because they're delusional. So I'm not one of those people where I need to know the retroactive dirt on somebody. That's just not my vibe. So I hope his legacy stays intact, because he was much loved by both his colleagues and us as fans. Okay. Next story up I'm going to talk about, because today I have to do roundup style, because so much happened this week. Lord have mercy. So much happened. Like I said, I have rarely seen a week in comic fandom like this one. Next up, I got to talk about Michelle Trachtenberg. Now, she's another one that we lost too soon. Michelle Trachtenberg was 39 years of age. She didn't even live to see 40. Lord have mercy. Cut off in the midst of her years. If she's going to live to be 80, that's just halfway through. That's just, anywhere you cut that is tragic. So we don't know what was going on with her, but let me pull up an article. Then I got some comments on that. So let me pull up, because she was another one to where she had already established a good body of work. She had already established plenty of content that people love to see her in. So, I mean, it's just tragic again. So let me pull that up. Here we go. Okay, that should be on your screen now. Let me get rid of my, okay, there we go. So it says, Buffy the Vampire Slayer stars Michelle Trachtenberg's cause of death ruled undetermined. Michelle Trachtenberg, known for roles in Gossip Girl, Harriet the Spy, and Eurotrip, died February 26th, just 2 days ago. Michelle Trachtenberg's cause of death has been released. The 39-year-old actor's cause of death and manner of death were both ruled undetermined. New York's Office of Chief Medical Examiner confirmed to Fox News Digital. The undetermined ruling came after Trachtenberg's family objected to an autopsy. Fox News Digital has learned. Fox News Digital reached out to representative for Trachtenberg for comment. Families may object to an autopsy for religious reasons. According to New York public health law, the medical examiner can only override a family's decision if the descendant's death is considered suspicious or for health and public safety reasons. And that makes sense, because if it's a murder, they're going to need to examine the body so they can bring the murderer to justice. And if they died of, like, the Ebola virus, they died of something that's possibly contagious, then they would need to know that too, so we could contain any type of contagion or outbreak. So, but this is another one where the family requested not to do an autopsy. Okay. She was found dead in a New York City apartment on Wednesday. It's just 2 days ago. 911 call around 8 a.m. She was unconscious and unresponsive. Not being investigated as suspicious. Okay. She had recently undergone a liver transplant and may have been experiencing complications. Okay. Representative for the Sister City star also confirmed the actress's death. The family requests privacy for their loss. Gary Mantouche told Fox News Digital, there are no further details at this time. Okay. So Michelle Trachtenberg got her start when she was a child. She'd been acting literally her entire life. So they're saying here she had been really, really down emotionally and really struggling. She was really sick, and she was open with those in her circle about how much she was struggling. She was pale, gaunt, very thin, and dealing with health issues. Okay, so started here on Nickelodeon. She's probably most famous for Harriet the Spy and for playing Dawn on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And also Sarah Michelle Gellar weighed in with a tweet, on her Instagram about Michelle. And so she was in Eurotrip. She's probably really well known for that. So she had a strong body of work. So again, this is another situation where we're never going to know the full truth about what happened. We're never going to know. So my comments, my 2 cents on it are, now I read a tweet this week where somebody said she was suffering from liver failure because she has jaundice. She has the signs of jaundice, the yellowing of the skin and the yellowing of the eyes. And that's what happens when your liver begins to fail. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. I'm just telling you what I read. And if the article we just read is accurate, then she had been struggling for a while. Now, some of the pictures she had posted on Instagram, as a matter of fact, let me pull up her Instagram so we can look at that. Because some of the pictures she had posted, she looked different in them. And so now somebody wrote a comment to her and asked her, was she all right? And she kind of snapped back and said, she said, yes, I'm all right. I'm just not 14 years old anymore. She said, I'm 38. And I thought that was a funny comeback, because she was like, I know y'all expected me to look like I did when I was Dawn, but I'm not there anymore. Okay. So In some of these pictures, she may not be looking her best, but like I said, it's not fair, I know, to speculate. And she, you know, her struggles were private. But I'm saying it's impossible to say that there may not have been signs of health-related issues. So I'm just trying to be objective. I'm not trying to be negative, and I'm not trying to accuse her of anything. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm trying to say that it's entirely possible that there were ongoing health issues, and she didn't want to share those, and her family doesn't want an autopsy. So it's another situation where we're not going to know. Let me pull up Sarah Michelle Gellar's Instagram post. Well, I keep saying tweet because I want you to see that, because it was so moving. It was so moving. Let me pull that up, and I'm going to share that. Yeah, here it comes. Okay, so let me put that on the screen so we can look at that. I told you, man, so much happened this week, Lord have mercy. So you should see it on the screen now. You should see Sarah's Instagram post, and what she said was, Michelle, listen to me. Listen, I love you. I will always love you. The hardest thing in this world is to live in it. I will be brave. I will live for you. Wow. Wow. And other celebrities chimed in. Christina Ricci chimed in. Reese Witherspoon. Christina Ricci said, I'm so sorry, sending so much love. She was the sweetest, loveliest human. Reese Witherspoon, oh friend, I'm so sorry. This is just heartbreaking. Jessica Alba, I'm so sorry. So, I mean, it's another one that hit people really, really hard. Because when you've seen someone grow up on screen, and when you've loved them as a fan for years, and when you love their body of work, you want to see them live as long as possible. And the celebrities and the actors and the entertainers that you really, really love, you never really want to see them die. When some of my favorite musicians died, I mean, it's just heartbreaking. There's never a good time to die. There's never a good time to die. We want to see you entertain us. We want to see you do what you do for days without end. And Michelle is another one that was loved by her family, loved by her co-stars, and loved by her fans. And that, to me, is a blessed life. Loved by your family, and then loved by your found family, your co-stars, the people you're on set with 16 hours a day, and loved by your fans. And she's another one where it's just so heartbreaking. And she's another one where, yeah, James is saying, Robin Williams was a big one for me. I broke down. Yeah, big one for me was Michael Jackson. When Michael died, I cried. I couldn't believe it. Because Michael died right before his This Is It tour. He was going to do one big last blowout concert to kind of end his career. And then he said that was it. And he died right before. You know, they were still prepping for that. And I couldn't believe it. Okay. And he's not the only one. But the point I'm trying to make is that when you have, that's why I'm trying to tell people all the time, there is great value in creating content. There is great value in entertainment. You make people's lives better. Like SMG said, sometimes the hardest thing about living sometimes is just living. And so when you bring people entertainment, you give them some moments to step out of maybe where they are, and some moments to have some escapism, some moments to engage their imagination again, because that's the most fun thing about being a kid is because your imagination has no limits. The younger you are, you haven't put a mask on yet. And there is such great, not just financial value, but spiritual and emotional value in entertainment. So that's why you always hear me being encouraging as I can to content creators, because we make a difference. You might not think you make a difference, but you do make a difference. And when we see something as tragic as Michelle's passing, I'll never forget the day that Michael Jackson died, James says, and I always feel bad for Farrah Fawcett, who dies a few hours before MJ. But not everyone remembers that because MJ's death was such a big story. That's right. That's another thing. If your death is concurrent, with other things like Gene Hackman and Michelle Trachtenberg in less than 24 hours back to back. And if something else is going on, it's possible there might be some overshadowing or whatever. And that can be really difficult on the surviving family or sometimes the fans, So I'm saying that out of this, I want to try to draw something that we can learn from, even though it's tragic. There's nothing not tragic about Michelle's situation, absolutely nothing. But maybe we can draw out of it the fact that there is great value in entertainment. That's why you hear me defending comic books all the time. That's why you hear me defending good stories all the time. That's why you hear me talking about good movies all the time, because there's great value in it. It's not just escapism. Sometimes it's challenging you. It's inspirational. Sometimes it's challenging you to be better. Sometimes it's challenging you to dream bigger. Sometimes it makes you question your own limitations. And what's on the screen isn't real, but its impact on you is. I've said that for years. The stories, the characters aren't real, but the impact is. And so my feedback on Michelle's death is she was so loved, and it's so obvious that she was so loved. And let's use her life as an inspiration to realize that we do bring value to the table as actors, writers, dancers, singers, musicians, playwrights. And the content we create can bless people's hearts. Okay? So I've got to move on to my next story if I'm going to get all these in. I thought, my first thought this week was that I was only going to cover this story, because this story was so big when it broke, like right around Tuesday. I thought this was going to be my only topic this week, and then so much happened. Kathleen Kennedy. When that broke, I said that's what I'm going to talk about on Friday, because that was huge. Okay, and as it turns out, it wasn't nothing like what we thought. I mean, the way it broke, I'm going to pull up an article in a minute, but the way it broke, people were talking about, they've been waiting on her to go, and, the day we've been waiting on all this time has finally happened. And, people were talking about, can Star Wars be saved? And is there any value left in the franchise? And on and on and on. I mean, people had extreme reactions because Kathleen Kennedy has been in charge of Lucasfilm ever since George Lucas sold it. And Disney Star Wars is a completely different direction from Lucas Star Wars. Okay? And everybody feels the way they feel about that. So I might slip off into a rant, maybe, but being objective and factual, whatever side you fall on, the truth of the matter is that there are different sides to the argument. So wherever you might find yourself, there is no denying that Disney Star Wars and whenever Kathleen took over is a completely different kind of thing. Okay? So let's look at the story, because again, this was so big when this broke, I thought this was going to be all that I talked about today. So let me pull that up. Where is that? Okay. Okay, I'm on IGN. You should see it on your screen right now. All right, Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy responds to retirement reports, confirms Star Wars succession plan. Okay. Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy has responded to reports that she is set to retire later in 2025. Earlier this week, Puck News, that's who first broke the story, claimed the veteran film producer was looking to retire at the end of her contract this year. Additionally, Puck claimed Kennedy previously considered retiring in 2024, but decided to hold off on making a decision. Now, I watched a lot of videos where they said that Kathleen Kennedy said she wanted to go out on a bang. So she was going to finish up this year and then she was out. While Variety reported that a source close to Kennedy called Puck's story pure speculation, the Hollywood Reporter confirmed the report. Okay, then Kennedy responded herself. According to Deadline, Kennedy is working with Disney boss Bob Iger on a succession plan 13 years into the job, with Star Wars Rebels creator and current Lucasfilm Chief Creative Officer Dave Filoni apparently in a strong position to take on the role. However, she insisted the truth is, and I just want to say it loud and clear, I am not retiring. I will never retire from movies, she continued. I will die making movies. That is the first thing that's important to say. I am not retiring. While Kennedy confirmed that Lucasfilm has every intention of making an announcement months or a year down the road on an eventual succession, she's continuing to stay at Lucasfilm. That involves producing the upcoming Mandalorian movie and a Star Wars film from Deadpool and Wolverine director Sean Levy. Okay. It sounds like plans are very much in the works for Kennedy to step down from her current role as president of Lucasfilm, but that doesn't mean she's leaving the company behind or retiring from the movie business. I'm not going to be here forever, she said. George Lucas asked me 13 years ago to step in. Now I'm looking at who's going to replace me. And as I said, we have a bench of people, internally to handle the business, the creative side. The job has grown also since I stepped in. There was no streaming. There weren't a lot of the things that we're involved in right now going on. So it has grown, all of which is true. Okay. Kennedy also denied she's being pushed aside or in need of being replaced, insisting that that was absolutely not the case and could not be further from the truth. Okay? So I'm going to get to that stuff in a minute. So she made it clear herself that all those speculation, all those rumors, I'm telling you, man, the internet went crazy. Twitter went crazy. YouTube went crazy. Everybody went crazy at the thought of her stepping down. And that's because there's no way around it. Disney Star Wars is divisive. And Disney Star Wars, for most intents and purposes, comes across like it's intended to be divisive. Okay? There is no way around that. It is a different direction, a different vibe, a different focus, a different everything from George Lucas' Star Wars. Now, how you feel about that and whether or not you enjoy that content or whether or not you enjoy the direction is up to you. I'm stating a fact that it wasn't this seamless transition from what Lucas was doing and that whole vibe and energy. It was not this seamless transition from that into what came next. Okay? It was and is divisive. And so what I want to do is I want to look at the body of work and talk about that. So let me pull that back up on the screen because I'm trying to deal in facts. Let's look at the body of work. That should be on your screen now. Okay. Her tenure includes overseeing a new sequel trilogy, that's the sequel trilogy, Disney sequel trilogy that comprises Star Wars episodes 7 through 9, which is The Force Awakens, episode 7, The Last Jedi, episode 8, and The Rise of Skywalker, episode 9, as well as the start of Star Wars streaming era that includes The Mandalorian, 3 seasons of that, plus the movie coming up, The Book of Boba Fett, Andor, which just dropped a trailer for a second season, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, and The Acolyte. Okay? While some films like Star Wars The Force Awakens were blockbuster hits, other projects have proven divisive, and some, such as Solo or Star Wars Story, lost money. There is also Rogue One. There's also The Bad Batch. So it's not that there hasn't been a ton of Star Wars content. Deadline asked Kennedy point blank whether she would step down as Lucasfilm boss this year, and she replied to say she didn't know at this stage, but she confirmed It would be 100% my decision. Kennedy wouldn't say whether Filoni was in line for the top job or not. So when you look at all of that stuff, Rogue One, Solo, A Star Wars Story, the sequel trilogy, The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Andor, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, The Acolyte, Bad Batch, when you look at all that, how does that make you feel when I bring all that up? When I talk about that content in particular, how does that make you feel? What's your gut response to that? See, so whether you like it or not, whether you understand it or not, whether you agree with it or not, is divisive. The Last Jedi split fandom right down the middle. So some people that thought, see, because, okay, we got to go back. We got to go back to the original trilogy. The original Star Wars movie, retitled Star Wars A New Hope, Episode 4, was about a galactic conflict, and it had a wide range of very memorable characters that we know and love to this day. Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, shrunk it and made it about the Skywalkers. One more time. The original movie was about a galactic conflict with a colorful palette of characters. The Empire Strikes Back shrunk the universe and made it about the Skywalkers. Now, by the time we get to the prequel trilogy, also done by George Lucas, it's painfully clear that the central character of Lucas Star Wars is Anakin Skywalker. This is another one I don't understand why people argue that. The central character, now I know there was a 9-movie plan, I know about a whole bunch of stuff. Lucas paid for Empire out of his own money from A New Hope, I know that. But whatever, what we ended up getting, no matter what was on the pike, was by the time Empire rolls around, that movie made it about the Skywalkers. By the time we get through the prequel trilogy, it became clear that the central character of George Lucas Star Wars is Anakin Skywalker. Okay? Now, whether you like that or not, or agree with that or not, that's the Lucas films. Now, Star Wars had a whole nother life in what we call the expanded universe. Some people call it the extended universe, the expanded universe, the EU, which Disney declassified and made it Legends and said it wasn't canon. So they were coming up with their own stuff. And then they started pulling from it. And so that's another divisive move where all the books and the novels and the stuff that we enjoyed before Lucas sold it were now all of a sudden not canon at all. Another divisive move. And then we got this spate of content, the sequel trilogy, all the stuff I talked about, Boba Fett, Rogue One, Solo, Andor, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, and the Acolyte. Okay? So Kathleen Kennedy set the record straight by her own mouth saying she's not retiring, but she's not going to be here forever. So in other words, what she was saying was she wasn't giving us a definite, she's going to step down at the end of this year. That was speculation that was dropped, and people ran with it because a lot of people want to see her gone. A lot of people think she's the worst thing that ever happened in Star Wars. A lot of people don't want to see Dave Filoni succeed her because his philosophy is right in line with hers. And a lot of people are on the diametric opposite side of that argument, and they love what Rian Johnson did with The Last Jedi because it was something different. It was something completely different from what we'd seen. And it completely changed the landscape based on everything we'd seen. And then many of the stories that happen in the expanded universe and in the games were not necessarily only Skywalker based. So it's entirely possible. Hey, what's up? Cajun. I see you. What's up? So it's entirely possible that you fall somewhere in the spectrum of that argument, of the stuff you liked and the stuff you didn't like, and the stuff you wanted to watch and the stuff you didn't want to watch, and the stuff that you thought that was good. So where I fall is where I already told you. Everybody knows where I fall, where I stand. And where I stand is The Last Jedi split the Star Wars fandom, and it's the worst thing that ever happened to Star Wars. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not going to apologize for that. Sorry, not sorry. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. Everything about the sequel trilogy was designed to destroy the original characters. Nothing from what we knew of the characters from the first 6 ported over and was designed to exalt Rey at the expense of everything and everybody else. I don't care if you agree with me. I don't care if you don't like that. That's my opinion. Okay. And that's the hill I'm going to live on. So how many times in life do you think life is going to drop a $4 billion value franchise with 40 plus year fan base fans into your hands? As a newer Star Wars fan, that last one lost me. What do you mean that last one? Do you mean the Acolyte? That last show? Do you mean that's what lost you? Let me know in the comments if that's what you mean. So my take on it is, how many times in life do you think that's going to happen? Star Wars was and is the biggest sci-fi fantasy franchise in history. It had a fan base of over 40 years going strong. And when you're a geek, what you do is you pass on your love for the things that you love. Okay, Last Jedi. Okay. You pass on your love for the things you love to your kids and grandkids. So when you cut out the geek community, you're not just cutting out the generation you're dissing. You're cutting out future generations because they're not going to pass on your content. How many times in life do you think life is going to drop a $4 billion franchise into your hands? What do they do with it? What do they do with it? What is the current state of Star Wars? What do they do with it? That's always my question. And the reason that's my question is because I'm trying to watch and learn. You never know how life's going to turn. You never know what opportunities life is going to drop in your hands. You never know. You never know. I don't know what opportunities life might yet give me. But when it does, I want to watch and learn. I want to see, because the thing to do when you inherit a franchise that's already established is there are certain conventions, certain expectations, certain things that are part of the story world that you don't want to just throw away because it's what the audience is going to be expecting. So that's what I'm saying. As a fellow creator and writer myself, I'm trying to watch and learn. Because if life affords me an opportunity like that, I want to do the best I can with it. How many times in life do you think that's going to happen, where a $4 billion franchise gets dropped in your hands? What is the state of Star Wars? What is the state of Star Wars fandom right now? What is it? So you have a lot of people saying it's great, it's greater than it's ever been, it's doing well, breaking records, whatever, and you have a lot of people saying it's dead. It's a dead franchise, it's a dead brand. Evidenced by the fact that they can't sell toys of the new characters. The sequel trilogy characters, they can't sell those toys. If people want toys, they want the original trilogy characters. They couldn't open a theme park on the sequel trilogy characters. Okay? Can't do it. So there are plenty of videos out there that go into detail. I recommend Midnight's Edge is good for that. WDW Pro is good. Have those. Geeks and Gamers is good. Plenty of channels. And of course, probably the most famous ones are Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker. Plenty of channels that goes into those details about how, looking at the numbers, how the new merchandise is not moving from the sequel trilogy, just the original trilogy merchandise. And how they're changing their hotel and just a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, but are the people making these movies fans of the work or just trying to get a paycheck? I don't know, but I would not say that they're fans. Because fans try to honor what's already been established and then build upon it. Fans don't do things that are specifically designed to destroy everything that's already been built. This is what writers know. When you step into it, now if you created the story world, I've got characters and I've got comics I've created. Behind you is one of them, the Nephilim Wars. When you create a story world, you can do whatever you want. You can set the parameters of that story world. You can set the physics of that world. You can set the characters. You can do whatever you want. Okay, the Nephilim Wars, if you don't know what Nephilim are, they're human angel hybrids. They're angels that left heaven to have sex with human women, and they made babies. So now those hybrid babies have superpowers. That's really true, by the way. That's a real thing. That's who Goliath was in the Bible that David fought. The reason Goliath was a giant was because he was descended from the Nephilim. So it's actually a true story. It's not a fantasy world. So, but whenever you write a story, you get to set the parameters of the story world. You can make up whatever you want. So when you inherit a story world, however, there's a mythology, there's a lore. There really should be a Bible, a character Bible, and a lore Bible that have some things that are set that you need to honor. And Disney Star Wars made a point to turn Han Solo into a loser, a deadbeat dad, someone that just couldn't hold his marriage and his family together and gets killed in the stupidest way possible, to turn Luke into someone that was old and bitter that didn't want to have anything to do with saving the galaxy, even though he was the most optimistic character. He believed in the goodness that was still in his father, and that's why he saved him. And also Luke's inherent goodness is why he didn't become like Anakin. And Leia had powers we'd never seen her have before. And when Luke went to fight that final fight, he actually wasn't even there. He was force projecting. That means when he went to kiss his sister, he didn't actually come in person to kiss his sister goodbye. That was a force projection. And then Palpatine came back in Rise of Skywalker. So like I said, I'm getting a little ranty. I don't mean to rant in this video. I have other videos to rant in. But the point I'm trying to make is that it cannot be argued that Kathleen Kennedy is a divisive figure. And it cannot be argued that there are some that love everything that she's done, and there are some that can't wait. But I stopped by to tell you, she's going to ensure that her legacy lives on when she does step down. She's only going to install people that believe what she believes. So whether we like it or not, the Disney Star Wars flavor is the flavor now. So I'm going to leave that one right there. And I'm going to go to my last story that I'm going to cover today. Because I told you so much happened this week. And I know there's more that happened this week that I'm covering, but I can only cover 4 in this time slot. I couldn't cover all of them. I might have to make separate videos. The last one I'm going to cover today is lanterns. Now, we got a look. James Gunn gave us a first look at the Lanterns production series. Now, if you're not familiar with what that is, they're making a show that's about basically the Green Lantern Corps. It's supposedly supposed to center on Hal and John. And then other characters are going to be introduced in. Now, there was one bit of news that said it wasn't going to be a part of the larger DC universe. And then there was another tweet where, and I think I have that, where there was a clarification where they were saying that, no, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be a part of it. It means that it's going to be its own thing, but it still happens in the same universe that, for example, the Superman movie happens in. So it's still in the same universe that the Superman movie happens in, but it is a part of, yeah, I have that tweet. So we're going to look at all that, okay? Because there's been so much feedback on this. So let me pull up that first one so we can talk about that. And I will deep dive and I will give you my take on all of it. His first tweet I want to look at from Gunn himself, that should be on your screen right now, where he said, excited that Lanterns is now in production. DC Studios' new show for HBO and Max from creators Chris Mundy, Damon Lindelof, and Tom King, starring Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre, is something really special. So it's going to be on Max. This is part of the DCU. Okay? Now, we're going to read some comments in a minute, but my initial thought of looking at that picture is, my tweet was, why are we looking at grounded lanterns? That didn't make any sense to me. Okay? When you drop a preview It's supposed to be to get people excited about your show. It's because you want people to tune in to what you're doing. It's because you want people to get hyped up. It's supposed to be hype for what you're doing. And the last thing that I wanted to see in a Green Lantern Corps show is them walking on the highway. I want to see some costumes. I want to see some rings. I want to see them flying. I want to see some plasma sculptures. I want to see all the things that come along with the Green Lantern world. So a lot of people say, well, that's, going to come later and they're going to say that or whatever. I'm like, that is the way you get people hyped for the show. You show them stuff like that, not this. Okay? If no one told you that that was a still from a lantern show, you wouldn't know by looking at it, which is exactly my point. Let me say that one more time. If no one told you flat out that this was a picture from a lantern show, because this brother over here looked like he just got out of rehab. You can't tell me Hal don't look like he just got out of rehab. And John looked like he's sick of bailing Hal out. That look on his face is one of disgust. You cannot look at that picture and tell that that is a Green Lantern show, which is exactly my point. Now, some other tweets came up later where they zoomed in on the ring. You shouldn't have to zoom in on the ring. You can't look at first glance and tell that that is a show about the Green Lanterns. Let's look at some of the comments on this tweet. If Tom King's involved, it's going to be insulting trash to actual Lantern fans. And this pic looks exactly like that. Green Lantern DCU updates. We cannot wait to see this epic series. Okay. High fives all around. Zoom and enhance. There's my friend Ryan about the ring. Tom Boyle, Green Lantern fans, it's finally happening. Which version of Hal and John's dynamic do you hope Lanterns explores the most? Tom King the GOAT. Okay. Just being one of the first look is this. Doesn't give Lantern vibes at all. And why is Hal Jordan old? Okay. Eternal Freak says, James, your announcements are the most boring, most unexciting, most prosaic things for a universe supposedly based on dynamic and larger-than-life characters. Really, I think you should reread your job description. Wow and ouch. Okay. And then Diana _ Prince 41 is talking about how Wonder Woman doesn't have anything like this in the works at all. Goat Lantern, why is Hal Jordan so old? He's such a fan favorite character. Why'd you do him like this? Hope he doesn't get killed or replaced. Okay. And then on and on and on. All right. So I'm trying to show you that once again, this announcement is proving to be divisive. Okay. Cajun said, I didn't even see the ring. That's right, because you got to zoom in on it. There's nothing about that picture that lets you know that's a lantern show. And you got to zoom in to see the ring. There's no costumes. There's no flight. There's no plasma sculptures. There's no epic battles. Nothing in that picture. It's two dudes walking on a highway, one of which looks old and disheveled. That don't say Green Lantern. So let's look. Let's look at this next tweet I want to go over. Oh, no, that's the same one. Hold on. Hold on. I pulled up the wrong tweet. Let me pull up the right one. Yeah, this one. Okay. In Lanterns, John Stewart and Hal Jordan investigate a murder in Nebraska, with Hal training John to replace him and retire in peace. Will Hal really get to retire in peace? Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad premise, but what I am saying is that speaks to more like a buddy cop or a buddy detective show. And there's not anything wrong with that, except where's the Green Lantern part? Okay, because if you can take the superheroics out of the show, then you have a different type of thing. And that's the argument people make about Captain America Winter Soldier. That's really a spy thriller movie. And it is. But if you take Captain America out of it, it's still not the same movie. It's still a good movie, but it's not the same movie if you take the superheroics out. Still a good film with superheroics in it, but it's about Captain America's journey through that adventure. Not the same movie, you take Cap out. But this, if you take the lanterns out and you have two gumshoes investigating a murder in Nebraska, that works without the lanterns. So, okay. Comment here said, Hal's never been more dead, I fear. Only thing that would shock me is if they actually made him a GL alongside John, which trades are saying he doesn't, at least on the movie side. Lord have mercy. So they might be setting up Hal Jordan just to get rid of him. He might be getting ready to go out in a very spectacular blaze of glory. And while they might think out with the old in with the new, nobody wants to see that, especially people that have loved Hal for a long time. Okay, the show that we finally saw Hal get his due on was Green Lantern, the animated series, and then they canceled that because it wasn't selling enough toys. Same reason they canceled the Titans. Ugh. So let's look at this tweet from DCU Hype about how it fits into the larger DC universe. For some clarification, Lantern is part of the DCU. When showrunner Chris Money says it's not part of the DCU's larger storytelling plan, that season 1 is designed to be its own complete season of television that hopefully will become mini seasons. It simply means Lanterns will not have any overreaching ties into the DCU or over displays of connection into the universe. Rather, it would be its own thing that exists in the same world as the DCU, but away from the major active events and characters in it. Sorry, that doesn't make any sense. Because Guy Gardner's in the Superman movie. If this is true, and it doesn't have any overarching ties into the DCU or any overt displays, that means what happens with Guy Gardner in the Superman movie is going to have no bearing, no echo, no part of this, and vice versa. So if you have Hal at retirement age, and you have him training John, and then you have Guy as a part of Justice League International, but they're not talking, they're not a part of that. See, that doesn't make any sense. That makes zero sense. So that's what I mean when I say it seems to me that there's going to need to be some connective tissue between the Lantern show and the Superman movie and whatever else Gunn's got going on. This doesn't need to be in its own separate world. So that tweet went on to say that an example was The Mandalorian, like The Mandalorian is part of the larger Star Wars universe, but The Mandalorian had Luke Skywalker in it. Did we forget that part? The Mandalorian had Boba Fett in it. Did we forget that part? Did we forget that there was high connective tissue from the larger Star Wars movies in The Mandalorian? Did we forget that? It had a Rancor in it. Okay, I know that was Book of Boba Fett, but also it had Baby Yoda. Okay, Baby Yoda became the breakout star of The Mandalorian. I don't think they planned that. I think Baby Yoda Grogu became such a hit until it was kind of like the Steve Urkel of the show. Like Steve Urkel was supposed to be a guest star in Family Matters, and he blew up. That's what happened to Grogu, Baby Yoda. I don't think they planned that. But the only reason we call Grogu Baby Yoda is because we know Yoda from the movies. So the point I'm trying to make is that even though that tweet used The Mandalorian as an example of story that exists in the same universe, but is its own thing, it still has connective tissue to what made it Star Wars in the first place. And Ahsoka is a character that lived in Rebels, okay, and came into a live action kind of thing. So she was kind of like Harley Quinn. She existed in animation first, okay? So Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Rebels. So the point I'm trying to make is that I don't agree that this Lantern series shouldn't have any connective tissue with the Superman movie in the large universe. And I don't understand this initial image showing Hal looked like he just got through Time Went On and he's trying to sober up and John is sick of it. And you have to zoom in on the picture to see the ring. Nothing about that says Green Lantern to me. Okay? And nobody wants to see Hal Jordan. If they do like they normally do, it's going to be a John is better than him in every way. Hal is old and tired. It's going to be just like Ray and Luke. Hal is old and tired, can't do what he used to do. He's kind of given up on life. It's kind of pitiful. And here comes this young upstart that's going to be better than him in every way. That's just going to replace him. If they remain true to form, they're going to do that. Because we're no longer in an era where they respect. See, when Barry Allen became the new Flash in the Civil Age, after Jay Garrick, he actually built his costume and his name off of Jay Garrick. So there was respect there. So when the baton was passed from the Golden Age to the Silver Age, and even from the Silver Age to the Bronze Age, there was still respect. We're in a time now where, like The Last Jedi, what people do now is they tear down, they put on blast, they destroy the thing that built it up to where it is now. Okay? And so if this remains true to form of that energy, that vibe, then Hal Jordan is going to be pitiful. In that picture, he looks pitiful. A pitiful old man. That's the last thing that Hal Jordan fans want to see. And we still haven't seen him in the Justice League. We still haven't seen Hal Jordan in the Justice League in live action. We still haven't, except I know that crazy show back in the day. I'm not talking about that parody show. I'm talking about in modern times. We still haven't seen Hal Jordan get his due in live action. We haven't seen him in his prime. We haven't seen why he's the greatest Green Lantern. We haven't seen all the things he can do. We haven't seen why all the other Lanterns look up to him and some of them still fear him. We haven't seen any of that. We're not going to see it now. We're going to see Hal with one foot in the retirement home, and John's going to be better than him in every way. They also talked about, in a separate tweet, they also talked about how this Lantern series is going to have adult situations. Now, we know that whenever they use the word adult, they mean cursing and sex. That's what people means by adult. That's what people means this content isn't suitable for children. It means it's going to be profanity, and it's going to be sexual situations. I personally don't need to see either in a Green Lantern show. I want to see some action, like Green Lantern, the animated series. Not that we don't have drama and intrigue, not that we can't have relationships, because Carol is a part of Hal's life. And then depending on if John has a relationship, if he's with Shayera or if he's with Vixen, or however they play that. I'm not saying we can't have that stuff, but I'm saying it does not need to be R-rated kind of stuff. It's not necessary, and don't need profanity. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited proved that we can have, and I know sometimes it got a little risque, a little winky at the camera, but prove we can have fantastic storytelling and see people at their prime, and we don't need all that. So what I said on Twitter is that this is right. We don't need CWGL. I like that. We don't need, that's right. We don't need Smallville and Flash and Arrow and Batwoman and Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow. We don't need that vibe in this show. CW had its run and did its thing. We don't need that in this show. Okay? If it's a buddy cop show, fine, but there's no need to call it a Lantern show. It's not going to be about Lantern stuff. Do you get that? No need of saying it's actually part of the DCU, but there's no Guy Gardner in it, or it's not Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner. It's a different Guy Gardner, which is just going to confuse people. There needs to be connective tissue, and we don't need it to be R-rated. You can tell good stories without that. It's not necessary. And I'm not saying it has to be devoid of relationships. I also don't want to see some other stuff that I'm not going to mention here because I don't want to get my channel struck. But let's just say Hal had a relationship with someone that might not have been a legal someone. That's all I'll say. Those of you that read the comments, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't want to see that either. We don't need to see that. That's not going to help Hal in any way. So I'm not saying that this show isn't going to be good. And I'm definitely going to give it a chance. I at least want to check it out. But I'm saying I'm hoping all these flags I'm seeing, all these red flags on the Green Lantern show, I hope they don't play out like I think they're going to play out. Because if they play out like I think they're going to play out, this is going to be Green Lantern SVU. It's going to be overly graphic with both sex and gore and profanity, which is not necessary. It's going to be a situation where Hal is old and broken down and worn out, and he's going to get humiliated by John, and John's going to be better than him in every way. And we're going to see Hal go out like a punk instead of a boss. I personally don't want any of that. Just like I didn't want 10 years of Clark Kent not being able to fly, and every other Kryptonian could fly, Supergirl could fly, General Zod could fly. Even people that got his powers on accident, everybody could fly, but Clark on Smallville, I didn't need that. So I don't need that stuff I just talked about on the Lantern show. That's just me. All right? So that's my weekly wrap up. I had a very interesting conversation this week on Twitter about Wonder Man, but I don't have time to talk about that now. I might do a separate video on that. So leave me some comments below. Thanks to all of you that watched me live. Thanks to all of you that commented. Leave me some comments below. Like I said at the top, I'm going to leave a link to my carbon monoxide detector recommendation, because if you don't have a carbon monoxide detector where you sleep, you need one. And I found one for under 30 bucks. And it's one I use. So I'm going to leave a link for that. So thank you. Don't forget to like and share this video, because that helps me on my channel. You know that I do this because I love comic books, I love superheroes, and I love the people that love them too. All right? So I will see y'all same time, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time next Friday. DT2 Comics Chat, out.